Good afternoon. My name is Marie-Ange Binaguaho, and I work for the International Resources Group. You see two names there. My co-presenter was Stacey Young. Stacey Young works for USAID and was recently on a trip and is currently stuck in Banjul in the Gambia. So, and the vagaries of international travel and international work. So she is terribly sad not to be here. We're very glad, though, that you could come. Now, we had divided the presentation into two. She was going to talk about USAID and USAID's interest in knowledge management, and I was going to talk about a particular initiative, the Knowledge Management Impact Challenge. I will now do both. If I do not do USAID justice, it is not Stacey Young's fault, it's all mine. So do bear with me. In terms of crowdsourcing through the Impact Challenge, it's a USAID-funded effort, and the whole idea is it's part of USAID's knowledge-driven microenterprise development project, and as part of that, there was a small set-aside to actually crowdsource knowledge management activities and how people around the world actually measure them. And USAID, as most of you know, is a US government's international aid organization. Their mandate is to really help poorer countries around the world. And we mentioned the Knowledge-Driven Microenterprise Development Project. It's actually a misnomer. The project has grown. It's USAID's largest knowledge management project, but it's actually grown to expand to other sectors such as agriculture, health, and education as a mechanism, if you will, for knowledge management activities in those sectors.
Excuse me, can I ask a protocol question?
Absolutely.
Do you want us to wait till the end to ask questions or during the course of your presentation?
If you could wait till the end. Thank you. As I mentioned before, USAID's mandate is to support poor countries. And what you see listed are some of the goals that shape USAID's work around the world. Now, these are the rationale behind the agency's decision to invest in knowledge management is the fundamental idea that if we invest in helping people learn better, they will be able to use resources better, they'll be able to help themselves better, and not only improve and strengthen their lot, but also help promote US government's objectives globally. And in red you'll see, and the world will be a better place. That's a big assumption in terms of what drives our work. And that's an assumption that is being tested every day. And what we do is USAID works with the 4 components, if you will, of knowledge management. So they invest in knowledge generation, in knowledge capture, and knowledge dissemination and sharing around the world. The last one, knowledge application, is really where we have the challenge of, if you will, taking a look at, is the application of the knowledge we have generated and captured and shared, is that really improving our development activities? Now, an example of our knowledge capture and knowledge dissemination and sharing is USAID funds quite a number of projects, but also funds research. And the results of that, as well as project products, are captured in publications on various websites, and they are shared through conferences and webinars. And what our webinars do is our webinars actually allow people from around the world to participate in an activity that is in a particular location, whether it's here in Washington, D.C., or regionally in Nairobi or Johannesburg. And what we have found is that webinars actually allow people from 10 to 15 countries at a time to actually come in and participate in discussions and in presentations. So we are fairly confident, if you will, of the first three, as I mentioned before, in terms of we're sure that the knowledge that we generate and capture is actually disseminated worldwide and used worldwide. This slide is a bit complicated, but it explains what we do under each of the four components, if you will, in terms of setting up field-based learning networks, contractors, collaborative activities. Under knowledge capture, you have web repositories, documentations and tools, audio interviews. Under knowledge dissemination and sharing, we have online discussions, seminars, conferences, and then there is also funding for learning networks where grants are actually given for the specific purpose of an activity, but as part of the grant, different organizations, even if they are competitors, are told that as part of their grant, they do have to share, they do have to learn, to share some of their learnings with each other. And then there is assessing and learning going on throughout all these activities. Now, the challenge is, are we doing a good job, and can we do it better? Because it's pretty darn expensive. And of course, if we can prove that, then we can encourage the agency to invest more into knowledge management activities. The challenge, especially in the international development, is it's hard to define and demonstrate values. So for some learning impacts which are very hard to capture, having used the resources on a website, for example, or participated in a seminar series or interacted with peers, is a project manager doing a better job of, with her activities, and is she actually improving her project, be it in Zambia, Mexico, Jamaica, and do those activities then better benefit the people who live there? And that is the question that we are dealing with. So the old model, build it, they will come, and we can all assume that the world will be a better place. Yes, that assumption. Our current model is really build it, they will come, if only out of curiosity. They will like what they find, or at least some of it. They will contribute and interact. And that is a fairly important point in terms of we're not just building and saying this is set in concrete and this is what you're going to use. No, it's a first step, and let's react to it, take what you like, contribute, and then let's continue the building together. They'll find it useful. They will learn and help others learn. They will apply what they learn. And they will be better at seeking, sharing, and using knowledge. And the world will be a better place. And the big question is, how do we know? Now, there's some things that are fairly easy to pick out. Things like web stats. How many people actually come to visit us? The number of people we train, the number of participants, their initial satisfaction with the training they receive, a few process indicators. But in terms of then results, behavior change, how do you go back and actually, when they go back to Jordan, have they actually absorbed enough to change? Can they change the project? And then the big question of impact. And that question, is the world a better place? So we're trying to figure it out And one of, I started working with this project about 2 years ago. And I was given the wonderful title of Assessing and Learning Portfolio Manager. And after a couple of weeks, I sort of figured out. Yes, it's a wonderful title. And I went around and actually asked other project managers around, Washington, D.C., who worked in international development, well, how do you assess your knowledge management activities? And the answer invariably was, wow, well, you go find out and come back and tell us, because we're struggling with that same question. And from there was the idea of, why don't we actually ask around the world? There are many very smart people around the world who are implementing knowledge management activities. So the idea is, let's ask them, what knowledge management activities are you working on, and how are you measuring the impact? How are you coming back then to your constituents and saying, this really worked, and this is the return on investment, if you will, and it was a worthwhile effort. So we launched the Knowledge Management Impact Challenge. And I'd like to talk a little bit about our experience to date with that. And as we mentioned, it's an initiative under the Knowledge-Driven Microenterprise Development Project. We partnered with KM4Dev, and that is an international organization, an international consortium, if you will, of hundreds of people around the world who are interested not only in knowledge management, but knowledge management as it applies to development activities. So it has members all over Europe, the US, Canada, Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And then we worked with the Impact Alliance for the whole process of a web-driven competition, if you will. And the question is, why an impact challenge? And as I said before, while many people actually believe intrinsically that more knowledge-driven programmatic activities is going to result in better projects, better livelihoods, many of us are stumped when we're asked, well, how do you justify that investment? Show me the impact, if you will. And we found that we're all asking similar questions. And this is a good moment, if you will, to actually start spreading that question around and encouraging people to talk to each other about this. The mechanics of it was for 30 days, for actually 60 days, from December 1st to January 30th, 2011, we collected case stories from around the world. And we asked a few basic questions, including the sector, a description of the initiative, and then 5 key questions in terms of, we asked people to describe the approaches that were utilized, the purpose or motivation for assessing the initiative. In other words, was it something internal to the project? We'd like to really know what's going on. Or was it donor-driven at the end of the activity? We also asked around, the most important lessons learned that they had and what they would do differently, if they had a chance, and advice they would give to anybody who would want to run the same type of activity. And then, of course, the main unanswered questions or challenges related to their field work. And what we had was 47 case stories that met the basic criteria. One of the things is we made it fairly simple. We only asked for 1,200 words. As you can see, 14 from Africa, 5 from Asia, 1 from Australia, 7 from Europe, 6 from the Caribbean, and 14 from North America. And by the time we closed off the challenge, we had over 328 members sort of looking in, taking a look at the case stories, commenting, and dialoguing with each other. And this is a map of the people who actually came to visit. Now, what was exciting about this was we had people from over 100 countries, but including in places such as Sudan and even the DRC,